We're up to our entire interview, our second interview with John Lodge of the Moody Blues that we just did a few weeks ago. We cover a lot of ground. We talk about Mike Pinder, some funny stories, the future of the Moody Blues, some of the songs that he put together that really changed his life in some ways, some Moody Blues songs that are deeper than you think, and a lot of other subject. A great chat, a nice guy. It's John Lodge, our entire interview with a famous Moody Blues on Rock History Book. The Moody Blues were a British rock band formed in Birmingham, England in 1964, having enjoyed a diverse and influential career spanning several decades. Their music certainly has evolved through the years, with different eras that mark distinctive lineups and musical styles. The band's history can be broadly divided into three eras: the early years with Denny Laine, the classic era with Justin Hayward and John Lodge, and their comeback in the 1980s. The early years, 1964 to 1966. The Moody Blues were originally formed by Denny Laine on vocals and guitar, who would later, after this short stint, be a longtime bandmate with Paul McCartney and Wings. Mike Pinder, keyboards and vocals, Ray Thomas on flute and vocals, Graham Edge on drums, and Clint Warwick on bass. Their early sound was rooted in R&B, and they gained initial fame with their hit Go Now in 1964. The tune topped the UK charts and reached number 10 in the US. This period was marked with their energetic live performance and a series of R&B singles, but the band's first album, The Magnificent Moodies in 1965, failed to make a major impact. So Denny Laine left in 1966. The classic era, 1966 to 1978. The departure of Laine and Warwick led to the recruitment of Justin Hayward on vocals and guitar and John Lodge on bass and vocals, setting the stage for a new Moody Blues, their most successful and influential period. With the new lineup solidified, the band moved towards a more symphonic rock sound, incorporating orchestral elements and complex arrangements. Their landmark album, Days of Future Past, in 1967, featured the London Festival Orchestra. It fused rock and classical music in a very innovative way. The album included Nights in White Satin and Tuesday Afternoon, which became timeless classics. And this success established the Moody Blues as a pioneer in progressive rock. In fact, Days of Future Past has been given the distinction by many as the first prog album of all time. Throughout the late 60s and 70s, the band released a string of successful albums, including In Search of the Lost Chord in 68, On a Threshold of a Dream in 69, To Our Children's Children's Children, also in 69, Question of Balance the following year, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor in 71, Seventh Sojourn in 72, and the hits of the period included Questions, The Story in Your Eyes, and Isn't Life Strange? The Blue Jays Project in 1975. During a hiatus in the mid-70s, Justin Hayward and John Lodge released an album as a duo called Blue Jays in 75. The album was very well received, and it was another example of that great chemistry between the pair. Patrick Moraz joined the Moody Blues in 1978. Moraz had previously been a member of the band Yes, joining in 1974 for the Relayer album, which, by the way, was his only full album with the band. Moraz's tenure with Yes from 74 to 76 and a guest appearance in 2018. Moraz joined the Moody Blues for their Octave tour after longtime keyboardist Mike Pinder decided he didn't want to tour and left the band. His synthesizer work significantly influenced the band's music during his tenure, adding a fresh progressive rock element. He remained with the band until 1991, the 1980s comeback and beyond. That started in 1981. The Moody Blues reunited in 1978, and their 1981 album Long Distance Voyager marked a successful return to the music scene. Featuring hits like The Voice and Gemini Dream, the band continued to release albums throughout the 1980s, including The Present in 83 and The Other Side of Life in 86, featuring hits like Your Wildest Dreams. In the 1990s and 2000s, the Moody Blues maintained a loyal fan base, touring extensively and releasing albums like Keys of the Kingdom in 1991 and Strange Times in 1999. I finally got a chance to listen to the new record.
Yeah, oh.
Really inspiring. I got to tell you, man, I loved it. And I felt guilty. I went, oh, I haven't listened to it till now. And how long did that take you to do?
It took quite a long time because I started it originally as a live concert. So we rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And then we decided to make the album. And it took a long time working out how to do the album to really. So it wasn't the same, but it didn't differ much. It's really important for me to get the feeling, the emotion of the album, but make it this year, 2024, And I think having Graham, I went to Graham Edge first and said to Graham, just before he passed away, unfortunately, I said, Graham, would you go in the studio and record your poetry for me? Because I want you to be on stage with me, although be on a screen. He said, John, I'd love to do that. I've never recorded my own poetry. And he said, yeah, keep the Moody Blues music alive. And it's a really great moment on stage when Graham comes on that screen. There's a lot of emotion there. A lot of years we worked together. And yeah, so when I progressed into the album, I had lots of pieces already worked out from the live concert. And then I said to Alan Hewitt, who was, my musical guy, musical director, Alan, how can we do this? And not make it the same, but keep the emotion and the spirit of the album. And one of the things I thought about, it was introducing more electric guitar into the album, which I did, and changing a few things, but probably people who've got an original album wouldn't perhaps notice them, but they are slightly different. And it gave it its own personality, I think, to the album.
The Moody Blues had a lot of great albums, but the crowning achievement was their second, the first featuring Justin Hayward and John Lodge, Days of Future Past. There was some genre fusion going on. Days of Future Past is one of the first albums to blend rock and classical music, a pioneering example of symphonic rock. The album features orchestral interludes performed by the London Festival Orchestra and conducted by Peter Knight. A concept album. Released in 1967, it's considered to be one of the earliest concept albums with songs representing different times of the day, like The Day Begins to Nights in White Satin. The original intent. Initially, Decca Records commissioned the band to create a rock version of Dvorak's New World Symphony to showcase their Dynamic Sound System, DSS. However, the Moody Blues and their producer, Tony Clark, convinced Decca to let them do their own material, and it worked. A breakthrough hit, Nights in White Satin became the album's standout track and one of the band's most enduring hits. It was released as a single twice, first in '67 and then in 1972 when it achieved its greatest success, commercial success. The album did not immediately chart in the UK, but later became a commercial success, particularly in the US, where it reached number 27 on the Billboard Top 200 Albums. Technical innovations. The album was notable for its use of the mellotron, an early keyboard instrument that played pre-recorded tapes of orchestral instruments, giving the album its very distinctive sound. Legacy and influence. Days of Future Past is regarded as the seminal album in the development of progressive rock. It influenced many artists and bands that followed, really contributing to the evolution of that genre. And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the album artwork. The iconic cover art, created by artist David Ansley, reflects the album's themes of a passage of time and the blending of classical and contemporary elements. Justin had told me, and you had told me a similar story about the originally with this album being planned for this, and then it turns into this. Was that a group decision of going, we're going to do this?
Yeah, group decision. We were helped by Peter Knight, the orchestra guy, because he was the leader of the London Festival Orchestra, and he came to see us at the concert in London, and he said, you know, you should introduce your own songs into this. And that gave us an impetus. We said, that's it. And we didn't let anybody from this record company come into the studio while we were rehearsing. And then we played it back to everybody. From a record company point of view, it wasn't what they wanted. Because they wanted a sampler album, really. But we had two people there. A guy who was head of the classical department of Decca, called Hugh Mendel, understood entirely what we were trying to do. And there was the vice president of London Records out of New York there, and he knew it. He knew that it was the beginning of, can I say, progressive rock.
Is the young kid that wanted to be a musician, I get a feeling he's still living in you, alive and well, and having fun up there.
Yeah, I really am. I play every day. I've just been speaking to Alan Hewitt, my musical guy, this morning, discussing the concert tour. Yeah, I love it. Since I got hooked on rock and roll music when I was 13, it stayed with me all the while. I play music non-stop all day. I just love it, and it's exciting.
What would you tell him now, knowing what you know, that 13-year-old?
I've had an incredible ride, and I'm still having an incredible ride. And I think when you're 13, the people say, what was your dream? I didn't have a dream. I just wanted to do what I was doing on the guitar.
Yeah.
And everything else happened after that. People say, oh, you must have wanted to go play the Albert Hall at Madison Square. Those things happened on their own. You know, other people played there. I didn't play there. But when the opportunity came, we played there.
Do you think with the Moody's, everyone contributed so much, especially you and Justin? Did you and Justin ever have a Lennon McCartney thing where someone was, if someone contributes at that level, it makes you work a little harder? Was that even conscious for you?
I think Justin and I used to sit in his studio or my studio, and we'd go back for forwards and ideas, like Gemini Dream.
Yeah.
I think the original title was Touring the USA, because we wanted a song that put us back on the road, because really we hadn't been on the road for 6 years. And I remember thinking, oh, long time no see, you know. And when we created the song, it developed and developed, and we realized when we were on stage, we were a different person to when we were at home. And when we were on stage, we were living that Gemini dream, being a musician.
It's 10 interesting facts about the Moody Blues album, Long Distance Voyager. Chart success. Released in May 1981, Long Distance Voyager became the Moody Blues' second album to top the Billboard 200 chart in the US, their first being Seven Sojourn in 1972. New keyboardist. This album marked the debut of keyboardist Patrick Moraz, who had joined the band a few years before, replacing Mike Pinder. Moraz brought a fresh sound to the band, having previously been in the group Yes. Hit singles. The album produced two major hit singles, Gemini Dream and The Voice. Gemini Dream reached number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 in Canada. The Voice tapped the Billboard mainstream rock chart and peaked at number 15 on the Hot 100. Concept album? There's been ongoing debate on whether Long Distance Voyager was a concept album, like the band's first record with Justin Hayward and John Lodge, Days of Future Past, which was officially the second Moody Blues album, after Denny Laine, who later joined Wings, left the band. While John Lodge has suggested a loose theme, Justin Hayward dismissed the idea, saying the album title was chosen simply because it sounded appealing. The cover art, it featured a print with the Voyager spacecraft added. It was inspired by a museum visit. John Lodge later found the original painting in a South London antique store and bought it. Recording locations. The album was recorded at the band's own Threshold Studios and RAK Studios in London. Threshold Studios was a custom design for the band by Decca Records. Production. It was the first Moody Blues album in over a decade not to be produced by Tony Clark. Instead, Pip Williams took on the production duties, updating the band's sound while retaining their classic elements. Legal battles. Before the album's release, the band faced a lawsuit from former keyboardist Mike Pinder, who had actually left a few years before. He argued that the group shouldn't use the name The Moody Blues without his involvement. The lawsuit, however, was unsuccessful. Musical styles. The album blends the Moody Blues symphonic rock style with elements of new wave and pop, featuring lush arrangements and synthesizer-driven tracks that appeal to an early 80s FM audience. Critical reception. The album was well received, with Billboard praising its gorgeous melodies, harmonies, and poetic lyrics, and Cashbox noting the band's luxurious symphonic rock sound. Just a few facts on a very successful comeback album by the Moody Blues, Long Distance Voyager, 1981. Who taught you how to phrase? Because I remember Gemini Dream to me and a few of your other songs, I like the way you phrase. Was there something that taught you? Because there's a nice bounce to Gemini Dream. Is there anybody that you liked that you learned songwriting from in the early days?
I don't really know. I just love music. It went into Buddy Holly was the mainstay for me because he showed me how to be a songwriter and performer, and you didn't have to be a massive American icon like Elvis or Gene Vincent, English people couldn't do that. We couldn't do that. We've never been able to do that. And we found another way through Buddy Holly. That's what the chord structures, really interesting chord, no 12 bars anymore, just different. Yeah. And I think following that line, but I think I loved all the American vocal harmony groups, started with the Platters, but then Temptations, Impressions, Otis Redding, they had something really fantastic. And I thought, if he could take that type of harmony into English guys, it might really work well.
How were your parents with music? How did they react?
Been my biggest fans, I think. Yeah, my mum still, unfortunately, she's passed away now, but 92, she was still coming to my concerts. And my dad passed away a long time ago. He loved it. He loved it.
With the tour coming up, how excited are you to get back out there?
So, yeah, it's always exciting to get out, meet everyone again, meet the fans, share a life with people. It's great.
John Davison's your son-in-law? Did I get this right?
Yes, he is.
Where did I miss that?
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? They're on tour at the moment. They're in Manchester tonight and Glasgow tomorrow. Yeah.
Nights in White Satin. What was your first impression when Justin brought that song in? What was your impression?
Totally different to anything else, It was the minor chord at the beginning was perfect for the Moody Blues. And he played it to, we were all sharing different apartments. We were all living in the one block of flats. And I remember Justin played it to Ray, and Ray was fiddling on his flute. And I heard it then, and I thought it was a great song. great song.
10 interesting facts about keyboardist Mike Pinder, founding member of the Moody Blues. Mike Pinder was born December 27, 1941, in Erdington, Birmingham, UK. He passed away on April 24, 2024. He was 82 at his home in Northern California. Pinder was one of the first musicians to use the mellotron in live performance and recordings. His work with this instrument was pivotal in creating the symphonic rock sound of the Moody Blues. The keyboardist sued the Moody Blues before the release of Long Distance Voyager in an attempt to prevent the album from reaching the public without his contributions. The lawsuit was ultimately unsuccessful, and he had left the band a few years before. It was his idea. At the time, in 1978, he had stopped touring with the band after the release of the album Octave. He had moved to California and was replaced by Patrick Moraz, who was previously in the band Yes. Pinder released his debut solo album, The Promise, in 1976. He followed that up with Among the Stars in 94 and A Planet with One Mind in 1995. He was a friend with John Lennon and contributed to Lennon's Imagine album, playing the tambourine on the song Jealous Guy. Pinder was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the other members of the Moody Blues in 2018. He chose not to give a speech during the induction, explaining later that the event was lengthy and he wanted the current touring members to speak. Pinder's background as an engineer helped him maintain and innovate with the mellotron, especially during live performances when the instrument often required immediate attention. He wrote several of the band's progressive tracks, including The Best Way to Travel and Om. He also narrated drummer Graham Edge's poems on their albums. Pinder's influence on the Moody Blues and his philosophical lyrics have left a lasting impact on the band's legacy and progressive rock as a whole. He is remembered for his spiritual and grounding presence with the band. With Mike Pinder, I just heard that he was he really the first person that brought a mellotron on tour?
Yeah, I think, it's amazing, the mellotron too. Those are the days when you used to take the equipment on the plane with you.
Yeah.
And we had to measure the doors to make sure the mellotron would go through the doors. It's unbelievable. And we had lots of fun and games with her. I remember one day we got the plane carried on and went to Hawaii with a mellotron in it. So it was fun and games.
The thing about Mike Pinder, is it true that he took a few psychedelics when he was learning to play the sitar with a student of Ravi? I interviewed Ravi when he was 86. He blessed me at the end of the interview. He says, "Bless you, John." I went, "Ooh, I've just been blessed by Ravi Shankar." But is it true that he had a psychedelic trip and the sitar actually talked to him?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. But Mike was into Maharishi and all that. And it could be, Mike was always exploring what can I say, supernatural, astrology, supernatural, ancient history, Sumerians. And he and I used to talk about ancient history a lot and how it affected us today, you know. So, but Mike was always great in innovative. He would always think of another way of doing things. Like on Isn't Life Strange, when I wrote that song and played it on the piano to Mike, Mike said, I've got a 19th century foot pedal organ, American one. You know the organs, you pedal and pull at the stops, and the faster you pedal, the louder it gets. Well, and he played Isn't Life Strange on that, and we recorded the foot pedal organ harmonium. And if you listen to the original recording, you can actually still hear the foot pedals going up and down.
When was the first time you heard your music on the radio?
Before the album was released, we recorded for the BBC. In England, there was a thing called needle time, and you could only play a certain amount of records during the day. So if you wanted to have your records played, you had to go into the studio and record them again, or record them before you recorded them for real. And you'd go into the control room afterwards and listen to a 2-track recording of the song. It was interesting.
What was the most rewarding part of being in the Moody Blues, and what was the toughest part of being in that band for you?
Honest, I don't think there's been a tough part. I've never thought about there ever being a tough part. Probably being away from home on a tour is the hard part. That because you miss birthdays and anniversaries and school trips, and you miss things you regret. But if your family was with you and understand what you do, and I've always kept my family involved, my children involved, so they know where Dad is all the while. It's worked for me. So that I've had trouble. No highlights. Too many.
Yeah. Do you believe in luck, by the way? I think that you do the work, you get in the right rooms, you've got intuition to be with the right people, but luck plays a part. But do you believe, how much luck plays into this?
You rehearse hard so that when luck happens, you're ready.
Best answer I ever had to that. The Moody Blues are probably never going to get together again, but in this situation, you get Justin doing his thing, you get you doing your thing. You get to experiment with different musicians. What's your take on the future of that band?
I don't know. I'm really loving what I'm doing at the moment. I've got an incredible band, Alan Hewitt, of course. Billy Ashmore was drummer with the Moody Blues as well, and he was, of course, with In Sync and Justin Timberlake. I've got a lovely guitarist, Duffy King from Detroit, Academy Award winner, and I've got a fantastic cellist called Jason Charbonneau. And the cello is something I've always wanted to be a part of the band, because you can use a cello playing soft in Isn't Life Strange, but you can always have a cello doing the driving force, like a Ride My Seesaw. And so it's having a cello in the band. It's given me some more drive to the songs.
Hope you enjoyed that. The Moody Blues were such a great band. Remember, if you want to support the channel, you can make a PayPal donation. The link is in the description. Join our Patreon, get early access, buy some swag. We've got caps and t-shirts and a lot more. Links in the description. And subscribe to our channel, share our videos, comment on them, and like them. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Book. Take care of yourself.